Children are known for their vivid imaginations. Imaginary friends, strange conversations, and unusual behaviors are common, and usually, parents don't worry much about it. But what happens when their stories go beyond imagination and cross into a frightening territory? Many believe that children have a special connection with the unknown, something adults lose as they grow up. In some cases, these stories make it clear that perhaps children see more than we realize. One of the most striking accounts comes from a girl just 4 years old. On an ordinary day, her mother suffered a minor accident and ended up burning her shoulder, resulting in a wound that soon began to peel. The girl watched with curiosity and at one point asked if she could keep a piece of her mother's skin. Finding the request strange, the mother asked why. With all innocence, the girl replied that she wanted to make a mask from her mother's skin in case she died, so she would always remember her. The mother, though trying to see it as innocence, felt disturbed. Such a dark and macabre thought seemed far too advanced for such a young child. In another incident, a 3-year-old boy made a comment that left his mother frozen. That morning, he appeared visibly tired. When his mother asked if he had slept well, the boy replied that he hadn't, because Grandpa Belerndi had kept him awake all night, pinching his fingers. His mother felt an immediate chill. Grandpa Belerndi had passed away 8 years before the boy was born, but what frightened her most was the pinching detail. The grandfather had the habit of waking up his children and grandchildren in exactly that way. How could the boy know that? He had never met his grandfather or heard stories about this habit. A logical explanation seemed increasingly distant, and the mother wondered if her son had truly felt his grandfather's presence that night. These stories make us wonder how much of a child's imagination might be connected to the supernatural. Small children tend to be sincere without the same filters adults have. Often, what they say sounds like fantasy, but how much of it is truly made up? One of the most intriguing stories involves a mother and her son, just 3 years old. On a casual city outing, they passed a cemetery and the mother didn't even notice it was the first time her son had seen such a place. She didn't expect his reaction when he looked at the cemetery. He stayed silent for a few seconds, staring between the tombstones. And then, as if speaking of a distant memory, he said, "I know this place, my other mother was buried there." The sentence took the mother by surprise. She stopped immediately, trying to understand what her son was talking about. Without offering further explanation, he lowered his tone and added, "My other mother died there." The mother was in shock. She knew her son had never seen another cemetery, and of course, had never had another mother. Even so, the calm with which he spoke and the certainty in his words were unsettling. Trying to rationalize, she thought he might be joking, but his expression was very serious, almost as if those memories were genuinely engraved in his mind. Another equally unsettling story involved a girl just 2 years old. On a typical day, while playing with her mother, the girl asked a question that left her speechless. The child looked up at the sky and, as if thinking about something profound, asked, "What planet are we on?" The mother, unable to understand where her daughter got such a question, simply answered that they were on Earth. But the doubt lingered. How could such a young child, with no access to information about space or planets, come up with something like that? The mother tried to recall if her daughter had seen anything related to space, maybe a cartoon or a book, but nothing came to mind. Her daughter's question echoed in her thoughts for days. Why would a 2-year-old ask what planet they were on? Could it be a distant memory from somewhere else? A remarkable story involves a 4-year-old boy and a memory that seemed to come from another life. On an apparently ordinary day, he was in the living room watching a documentary about the Titanic with his mother. When the documentary showed the boiler room of the famous ship, the boy frowned, looking uncomfortable. Pointing at the screen, he said with conviction, "That's not right." The boilers were on the other side. His mother laughed, amused by his observation, but the boy didn't seem to be joking. Instead, he repeated, "I remember it. That's why I never liked water." The mother was left speechless. Where could such a clear memory have come from? He was still far too young to fully grasp what he was watching, yet there was something in his expression that worried her. The specific detail about the location of the boilers and his inexplicable fear of water left her with a mix of curiosity and unease. Could it be possible that he had a memory from another life? Or was it simply a vivid imagination? However, the boy seemed certain of his words, and the topic of the Titanic was never mentioned at home again. Another strange and perhaps even more disturbing story involved a boy who seemed to have a very special imaginary friend. From a young age, he spoke with this invisible friend, whom he called My Angel. For his parents, it was normal children create imaginary friends all the time, and often these friends are protective figures. But one day, the boy's mother overheard a conversation between her son and his angel that sent chills down her spine. The boy was telling his friend that he couldn't take his father's life because his father was a good person and deserved to live. The mother froze, trying to comprehend what she was hearing. This angel seemed to be asking the boy to do something terrible, but he was resisting. The boy patiently explained to his imaginary friend that his father was kind and that he couldn't do what was being asked of him. The mother listened in silence, her heart racing. She began to wonder what this angel really was and if this imaginary friend represented something much darker. These accounts make many parents question the boundaries of children's imaginations. After all, how far can a child go in creating such detailed stories on their own? One of the most enigmatic and disturbing stories about imaginary friends comes from a girl who had an invisible friend named Jenna. Every day, she played and chatted with Jenna as if her friend were right there beside her. Her mother didn't find it strange. Imaginary friends are common in childhood, but one day, while they were driving, something happened that left the mother speechless. As they passed a cemetery, the girl waved out the window and calmly said, "Goodbye, Jenna, she's going home now." Confused, the mother asked where exactly Jenna lived. With all the innocence in the world, the girl pointed to the cemetery and answered, "There." A chill ran down the mother's spine. Jenna had always been a constant presence in her daughter's life. But now, the mother wondered if this friend was truly imaginary. The idea that her daughter's imaginary friend might actually be the spirit of someone resting in the cemetery never left her. She began paying closer attention to her daughter's conversations with Jenna, looking for any hint of something supernatural, but nothing seemed conclusive. It was as if Jenna was both real and ethereal, a figure caught between the world of the living and the dead. Another even more remarkable case involves a 4-year-old boy who one day casually announced to his family that he had once been a soldier. According to him, he had not only served in the army, but had also driven a tank. At first, his parents laughed, amused by their son's vivid imagination, but he kept insisting, describing the details of how he operated the tank. The parents thought he was making it all up until the boy began to describe how he had died. He said he was inside the tank when there was an explosion, and amidst the fire and smoke, his life came to an end. The disturbing account prompted the parents to research the family's history, and they discovered something shocking. The boy's great-grandfather, whom he had never met, had indeed served in the army. And, coincidentally or not, he had died in 1943 in a tank accident during the war. It was a family story the boy had never heard, and his description was surprisingly accurate, even down to details that his own parents didn't know. These accounts are just a few examples that lead many to believe in the possibility of past life memories. How else could one explain such detailed and specific descriptions from these children? In a disturbing situation, a family was shocked by what a child, only 4 years old, calmly told her uncle. In what seemed like a casual conversation, the uncle asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. Without hesitation, the girl replied that she wanted to be a doctor, but her reason left everyone chilled. She explained that she wanted to see children pass away right in front of her. The uncle was speechless, and the family became concerned. The comment seemed far too cold for such a young child. Normally, children want to save lives or help people, but this little girl expressed a morbid and unusual curiosity. The family tried to rationalize the comment, imagining that perhaps she had overheard something on television or in adult conversations. but the calm way she spoke, almost as if it were a wish, puzzled everyone. It was hard to believe that a 4-year-old could have such a dark thought without any apparent reason. Another eerie case involved a 5-year-old boy named Roger, who had an imaginary friend, but this was no ordinary friend. According to him, this friend, also named Roger, lived under the dining table and was not alone. Roger the friend, as the boy described him, had a wife and 9 children, all of whom lived under the table. The family found the story amusing, assuming it was just another childhood fantasy, a product of his imagination. But as time passed, the boy continued to mention Roger and his invisible family, always affirming that they still lived there, under the table. However, one day, when the boy was about 7, he made a statement that made everyone reconsider the story of Roger. He casually mentioned that Roger no longer had a family because he had taken all their lives. His parents felt an immediate chill. How could a child who should be experiencing a carefree and innocent childhood imagine something like that? And how would one explain the shift in the story of his imaginary friend? These stories make many people question the boundaries of children's imagination. How far are children capable of creating fantasy worlds? And to what extent are they, in fact, sensing something that adults cannot see?